Get, yes, man. Get away from the... Oh, you silly old bugger, man. What, so... Oh, yeah, can I say... But you know what you're going to do? You're going to go back and have another look, aren't you? Go on, what's down there? Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Yeah, we're going to do another voiceover. I've had this job for a while. You see this pile of rubbish there now? Though this was... A neighbour had cut this down and just left it. Now, it was here about, I don't know, have a little cough there, big fella, you know what I mean? It's early morning. It's been there for a while, about 6 months, but I didn't want to get rid of it or disturb it through the winter, just because you never know. There could have been a hedgehog in there, and actually it was one of Sophie's tips of the week. And I just thought, nah, I'm not touching, I'll just leave it, you know what I mean? Couldn't leave it that long now. We're now into April, and I'm sure if it's hedgehogs, they've gone, you know what I mean? So I got myself a little, because I want to talk about fire. And I got myself, as you can see there, a little incinerator off Amazon. Now this came at, I don't know, about £27, and it's kind of... There's something with myself and fire that has... There's something there, do you know what I mean? It's an excitement. Do you know, it's just... I don't know what it is, but what I'm going to do is attempt to burn all that rubbish and just tell you about... I think I've got about 4 stories of me with fire. Now, these aren't to be repeated. Or not repeated, not like carried out. Do you know what I mean? They're a little bit... stupid, to be honest. You know what I mean? Like I say, there's some, and I don't know where it's. I think it's just that excitement of fire. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, it's super dangerous and super. You know, some of the things I'm about to tell you are super silly and super stupid. But it was a time. It was a different time. I know this is kind of gets used all the time. As you can see there, what I'm doing is I'm just kind of trying to fix this bloody thing there. You know, it's got legs on it, and I think I edit this because I'm going on far too long. But some of the things I've done, you know, me time with fire, and that's just what it was when you were a kid, man. You were just like, you were playing out. It was adventure, and fire was there with you as a companion. Do you know what I mean? Especially, we used to live in a village called Croatrook, and I think 3 of my stories are in that Croatrook area, around that kind of... And this was like a village, it's about 10 mile outside of Newcastle, and it just like hills and dales, and, you know, it's getting a bit built up there now, you know what I mean? It's like, it's almost joined up to Newcastle, you know what I mean? There's not many green... Oh, watch your back, big fella. There's not that many green fields separating Newcastle to Croatrook, but it's the Croatrook, Wylam, Bladen, and Hannah lives at Bladen, so it's all round. Do you know what I mean? It's all around that area that were kind of firelighters were going. So the first, I guess the first time, I'm trying to do it in, you know, there's no like order of danger. They're all stupid, so it doesn't really matter which one I put first and which one I put last. They've all got a degree of, are you actually joking, Tony? You did that? And the first time, I suppose, was my fault because I burned a house down. But in a way, it wasn't my fault. But it was the first time where I really did. You know what I mean? We actually had to move back. So let us tell you about my first story. Then, me father, me mum. I think I don't know when they got married, and I don't know when they split up, but they were together, you know, at this time. And my dad was like, he would do anything, you know what I mean? Try anything. So we lived on a farm, we lived in a fish and chip shop in the Lake District. We had, when I was a kid, I think we had lived in about three pubs in the Lake District. You know what I mean? It's 1 pub in the Lake District and 2 over here in Croatrook. And it was just like you say, my dad was like just did, and I think that's probably what, you know what I mean? It was one of the kind of main things that probably you know, separated them. My dad, my mum was a bit of a home bird. My dad was like, and even after that, you know, my dad kind of went to Spain, restaurants in Spain, pubs in Spain, and all. Do you know what I mean? Just done everything. But we had a little bar in Ennerdale. Now I must have been probably about 8, I think, somewhere around. Can you see that? I'm safety. Did anyone notice that watching the video? Yes, hose pipe out, because there's cardboard, there's drywood, there's all sorts. So I actually did, you know, think about this. And so anyway, I was about 8-year-old, and we lived in a pub in a little place called Kirkland, which is a mile from Ennerdale. Ennerdale, you know, water. It's in that area, and we had this pub, and it was and I might have even mentioned this before. It was the time when bar meals were like the big thing. So it must have been in the 70s. You know, you got like chicken in a basket, chicken in this, you know, and kind of sausage and chips, and it was in this like basket sort of thing. Now I don't know where I've gone there. What my this is weird. On, I'll have to stop this. I'm getting carried away there. Just like, honestly, I'm just kind of closing my eyes and thinking about the kind of stories, you know what I mean, and the kind of time. So anyway, we lived in, I must have been about 8 years old. We lived in Kirkland at this pub, and it was boom time for like baskets, you know, like pub baskets in a meal kind of thing. But for an 8-year-old living in the Lake District, it was just an amazing place. Like I say, you know, I was just a tot kind of 8-year-old. There's no technology, anything like that. It was all roaming over dales and hills and just all sorts. But this time was we were decorating the pub. I remember my dad kind of decorating, giving a big like overhaul to the pub. And one of the little kind of funny things he did was he collected loads of the old £1, 1 penny coins, and he glued them and like stuck them all to the bar and varnished them. I always remember that. But it was the kind of height of the like decorating time. I was actually brought up an only child, although I have got a brother, I found out a little bit later. But I was upstairs, and it was a big pub, you know, or a big house attached to the pub. Now I was upstairs, and I remember just, you know, because I'm great on my own company. You know, I'm kind of really good like that. I was just, I think, in my pyjamas. Well, I was in my pyjamas with my dressing gown, and I even remember it was a dark blue dressing gown with like a red dressing gown belt. I even remember that. And there was a room that was, you know, I was just watching telly in this kind of big like living room area, and I remember going into this other room and switching the light off, and the bulb exploded, and this room was just full of tins of paint and tins of this, and, you know, like just decorating stuff. And I thought nothing of it. I just got a fright, you know what I mean, and I kind of shut the door and went back to the television, into the kind of the room that the television was in. And then I just heard this like cracking and banging and spluttering, and I went into that room again, and I'll never forget, you know what I mean, the whole room, like right in the center, there was just like this bonfire of flame leaping up to the bulb. And what I heard like smash was the electric bulb just hanging from the wire. And I remember running down in my pajamas and my dressing gown, going into the pub. And I also remember me, like, you know, I was like, you didn't have kids weren't in pubs there, especially kids in dressing gowns behind the bar. You know, it kind of probably, I don't know, 9 o'clock, I don't know what time it was. It must have been before my bedtime. But I remember the pub being heaving, and I remember my dad looking at me mum saying, "What's he doing here? Do you know what's going, you know, what's he doing?" And I was like, Mum. And then I cannot remember anything else. I cannot remember my mum running upstairs, but she must have done. And all I can remember from that, like that point there, was the next point when the whole bar was outside. Like all of the punters and everything like that were outside, and there was fire engines there. Everything was there, and the actual pub was destroyed. Do you know what I mean? It was just, and we had to move back to the village of Crowcrook, because we had a pub in Crowcrook called the Rising Sun, and we actually moved back in to the Rising Sun for a second time, because this pub actually burned down, or was beyond, you know, being a pub no more. Now the building's still there to this day, but it's now, I don't know if it's like a little cottage or a block of flat, you know, like, or a little flat or something. And I mean, Kirkland, if you have a look on Google, it's the one on the crossroads, right? Kirkland's like a little tiny village on crossroads. And there's one of the, you know, if you look at it, there's on the, I guess one of the crossroads, the only kind of house that would look like a pub is there. And that was the one that kind of, it just totally, you know, it was uninhabitable. I had to move back, and I mean, it wasn't kind of my fault. It was just, it was a faulty wiring, faulty bulb exploded, and what happened, what I found out later was, it actually fell into, you know, it was there was paint tins with lids off, and the sparks went into the paint tins, and there was paper and everything like that, and it was just, you know, a fire just went, you know, up, and you say, kind of totally. And like I say, this one, you couldn't really put it down to me, but it was one of the incidents in my life that kind of shaped us, and you know, it's kind of, it stays there to kind of this day in memory, you know. But so what you're touching that? Oh, have a look. Is that not meant to be hot? This is, to be honest, when I was even doing this, it's tame. You know what I mean? It's the sensible thing to do. And I don't know, it didn't give us the same kind of buzz, the same thrill. I would ideally just kind of set light to it, but there's just too much going on. Do you know what I mean? It's just kind of way too much like action waiting to happen, you know. So like I said, that's why I had the hose pipe there. So anyway, yes, we what was it called, that pub? Yeah, I can't remember now, to be honest. But it was in Kirkland, if anyone wants to Google Kirkland in the Lake District, next to, about a mile from Ennerdale. That's where it happened. So the next one then, the next story, and like I say, I don't think that kind of had anything to do with kind of fires or anything like that, but it's, fire has been instrumental. And what I say, when I kind of lived in Croakrug, we had, you know, like, it just roamed, like you say, you just like, we were lucky in Croakrug had a quarry. We had two quarries, which were just playgrounds for us. We had a sand quarry and a slate, kind of like a bit like a proper quarry where they quarried out rocks. But, you know, come tea time after school, these places were just empty, and they were just like, these were just like our kingdoms, man. You know what I mean? We just built camps. I mean, I'm even remembering the one there. What we used to do, we used to play like soldiers, right? This isn't even on my list, this one. We used to dig a hole. We should dig a hole which was probably the size, length of what I am now, say 6 foot long by say 4 foot deep. About the size of a door. That's because we used to use a door. And then we used to put the prisoners of war, it's couple them in the hole, put the lid on, and then smoke them out. Light a fire and smoke them out. You know what I mean? So there was a fire in the hole with the lid on. We used to like, surrender. I haven't even got that. I'm hitting me, Mike. I haven't even got that one on my list. That one didn't even make me list. So, did you notice there? I knocked the camera off, and then all of a sudden I've got flame coming up. Still never leaves us. A little bit of petrol went on that fire there. It just wasn't going quick enough for us there. Oh, get out. Oh, bloody hell. And the lid slows it down, which I didn't think it would. I thought that kind of tube hole would have just like used as a good exhaust. But once you lift the lid off, there's way more oxygen on the fire. You know what I mean? It's just kind of... But I didn't want it, like I say, I've grown up. So anyway, yes, I didn't even mention that one. But... come bonfire night was our kind of religion, bonfire night. And I always remember there was a gang of us, and one of the gang, and I think his name might be Neil Webster, Neil something, lived on the house to the entrance to the slate quarry. Had this loads of land, and there was like, even before you got into the quarry, it was like quarry-ish land, but wasn't like, it was just like messed up fields and that. But come bonfire night, that was the thing. And for, you know, it must have been like weeks before, it was a major kind of plan. Do you know what I mean? It was, you know, there was a system there. There was an organisation, even at that age. You know what I mean? This is like, must have been before I was 14. But we had a system, we had a plan, and the goal, always the goal, was to get a telegraph pole for the middle of the bonfire. And that was, like you say, that was we had to get every year a telegraph pole to kind of hold, you know, for the structure of this bonfire. And we did this, you know, and we would guard the bonfire once it was built. And I remember, like, you know, I can't remember how many times we got the telegraph pole, but we certainly got it once. And we were lucky enough, like, this lad who lived on, you know, had access to it, like a lot of, like, I'm guessing pallets and just wood, and it was massive, this fire. And this fire, we guarded it. You know, and you hear these kind of horror stories of people sleeping in fires and getting lit. And I mean, we never slept, but we certainly guarded it. But that was the thing. That was the key. It was, you had to guard your bonfire, but you also had to do recce's to go and find and go and burn other bonfires. Now, this is where it does get a little bit dangerous, right? So apologise now if it's going to be a little bit... But we went on a, like... And there must have been about 8 of us in the gang, you know, this kind of gang. And we did a recce. We heard there was a big bonfire in a place called... I think it was either Wickham on Wyn Leighton, one of the two, which is not that far. One of them is not that far from Bladen, like, see where Hannah lives. We went up there as a team, as a kind of... And it was almost like military. But we took... Now, I kind of forget what the size are. They're about the size of a 5-litre tin of paint. But it was one of those gas bottles. Do you know what I mean? Like the heavy, thick cast iron gas bottles. We had what... That was it. That was it. We just were kids. We had no idea. But we carried petrol and we carried this gas bottle. You know what I mean? Man, we found the fire. We kind of found the bonfire, and this is probably a week before actually Guy Fawkes night. And, you know, it was all like hidden and secret, you know what I mean? It was almost like mini military, you know what I mean? We kind of had to rummage, and we were all in the Scouts and the Cubs, that's, you know what I mean? And I think it kind of, we just kind of took it one step further from that. And we lit this fire with petrol, and we put this bloody gas bottle in. And I'm not joking. Even to this day, it actually, you know what I mean? I think what could have happened didn't stop us in the future doing even stupid stuff. But we put this gas bottle in, and this fire was, I would say, you know, the hut I had removed, it was probably as big as that. It may be a little bit taller as well. Do you know what I mean? It was a massive fire. But we put this gas bottle in, we put petrol, we lit it, we ran like hell, and we were like well away. And there was no one there, you know what I mean? We'd caught this fire. It was, you know, they didn't have guards. They didn't have guards. So we stood back and watched, and I'm not joking. When this gas bottle blew, it blew that fire out. It blew that fire out. There was not a bit of flame. There was not a bit of fire, to be honest. I weed myself. That's how frightened I was when this bang, and we all kind of were frightened. Do you know what I mean? It was just like, I mean, it was on a big playing field. There was kind of, you know, I mean, it was houses kind of nearish by, but mother chuck, we ran like hell after that. And the sky, you know, when things are imprinted in your mind, the sky was just a million kind of little shards of like flame and like ash and red ash and just twinkling. It looked almost angelic, but that noise, bloody hell, man. It was like we went too far. You see, is there chucking? Go on, John, there. You're just chucking over there, chucking over. It was just, man, It was just scary, to be honest. Absolutely scary as hell. So, that was one. Didn't learn, because sometime around that, I burned my scout hut down. And I can't think how... You did with oven gloves? I just noticed there. Oh, I did, didn't I? I went and got oven gloves. When I say I burnt my scout hut down, I think that's an understatement. I like to kind of, you know, show off to the kids, and I always tell them the story. But I think I burned half the, you know, like a side down. It wasn't like the full scout hut. It was one of those old scout huts anyways. It needed rebuilding. But I used to live next door to the Rise and Sun pub, and even the scout hut might be there to this day, to be honest. I used to live in the Rise and Sun pub. The scout hut was the kind of next building, you know, a few 100 yards away. And summer months, it was just like summer months as well, because that was a goal. It was to light bank sides. Do you know what I mean? When you were kids, if you could light gorse bushes on hills, you know what I mean? And they're even doing it still today. So don't criticise, don't mock, even the kids. You know what I mean? They're out and about it because it's happening still. We're walking past these. There's a little bit on the cliffs where I walk the dogs, and I'm thinking, kids have done that. Do you know what I mean? And it just brings back memory. I know. Hey, listen, this is an adult rating show. Hopefully no kids. But where was I? What was I talking about? So yes, let's say the fires. It was just to get a fire going, get a bankside going. But this one time it got out of hand. Do you know what I mean? I lit the kind of, and only, you know, when we first started, it was just like you wanted just like a little bit of the bankside to watch it. Do you know what I mean? That to watch it spread, and like you put it out. You know, it was quite funny to kind of watch it in a way, and then you put it out, and then you do it again. Well, it got away from us, and again, fire engines were there, and I also remember I just ran back to the pub where I lived, you know what I mean? And I was as black and as sooty, so my mother must have known. Do you know what I mean? Must have known. But I was as black and as sooty as anything. And I remember being in the bath. My mum was bathing us because I was that covered in black. And I remember like fire engines, you know, like the noise of fire engines. But the hut was still up, but it's just, I think it kind of damaged the side of a wall, but they had to kind of, I think it got renewed after that anyways. It wasn't, not that I'm saying I kind of burnt it all down. It was an old thing anyways, and I think there's kind of, it needed to be redone anyway. I can't even remember if like the scouts had actually finished then, because the building was a bit too old, to be honest. I know, but we loved the scouts, the cubs and everything like that. It was just a fabulous time, to be honest. To be a kid, you know what I mean? To be a kid without technology. You know, it's weird how my son, just like his whole childhood has been like online, you know, playing games. Well, just not for us. You know what I mean? We were just like, I'm not saying we were tinkers, but we just enjoyed life. Another fire story, and this is, we hadn't kids then, but we were bloody adults, you know what I mean? So we should have known better. But we had this. This is when we kind of started going away in groups, you know. So I was with Melanie at the time, you know what I mean? So and it was just the excitement, it was the thrill of it. But again, if you think that what could have happened, it was quite scary. We would go away to like these cottages, and we would build fires outside these cottages. And so the kids weren't born, so, you know, Ellie's 27. So, you know, it was at least 27 years ago, or maybe a little bit longer. The goal, you know what I mean, was to put, and it was called the Baked Bean Challenge. And we had to put, you'd light this fire, and you'd put tins of baked beans on, with, like, not open, right? And the goal was, I shouldn't be saying this, man. The goal was to jump the fire. This was the baked bean challenge. To jump the fire before the tin of baked beans exploded, right? How stupid is that, man? Big sake. I mean, all I can remember is we we did a few, you know, if in reality we probably did a couple and then stood well back because the ladies were there and we didn't be stupid in front of the ladies. But I remember when the baked bean tins exploded, again, it was this shower of like, it felt like hailstones. You know what I mean, that noise? The shower of beans. I mean, there was no like red sauce or anything. It was just like beans split. Hey, man. So yeah, and I always remember like getting cooked out. You know, the women stop it, get inside. You know, there's probably, and I've even got when we did that video. There is a video somewhere of when it was somewhere in Scotland. And there was me, there was my friend called Dickie, Richard, and my friend called Marty, and we you know had Melanie, and there was Richard's girlfriend and Marty's girlfriend. And I remember being on the beach, you know what I mean? We had fireworks, and we were lighting them and running with them, firing them at each other, and like the women were just, you know what it was that? So, God, man, when I think about it, and even, you know, I'm kind of coming to the end there now, but even with kids, do you know what I mean? I remember, and it was just, I think it was just the kind of, they haven't grown up to be kind of fire starters or anything like that, you know what I mean? Like say my son, just in bedroom grew up, you know what I mean? Ellie wouldn't dare do anything like that, but we'd always go, like say, a restaurant, like say an Italian restaurant, and me and, you know how we go out, our friends now are Maureen and Darren, we go all over with Maureen and Darren, and inevitably we'd get a sambuca at the end of the night, and you know they would light it, and obviously in front of the kids you dip your finger in the sambuca and pull it out, and you had a fire on your finger in the restaurant. Do you know what I mean? You're waving it about, and I always remember like the kids like couldn't like, whoa. So yes. The tales of fire with me, and I'm sure there's probably more, to be honest, but they're the ones that kind of stick out from us, do you know what I mean? And like I say, they're certainly dangerous, but when you were that, you know what I mean, looking back, it was way more exciting than this bloody incinerator thing that I've got here. I think I smoked the whole village out, to be honest. Go on, chuck something. Actually, they're brambles. There's a few of them just lying around, and I just kind of hide them back over there to stop any little kind of Jorags climbing over my wall to set the fire. But, yes, dear me, fire. So I thought I would just reminisce and let you know, and don't judge us, it was a long time ago, it was a different era, that's all I can say. Anyway, look after yourselves, take good care, and I hope you still come and watch us after this. Look after yourselves, take care.